You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. There's been a lot of new happenings in the county, a lot of ribbon cuttings, and we're here to cover all of those. And to do that, brought in Mr. Mike Goldberg, Dr. Joe Venosa. Thank you, gentlemen.
Howdy, howdy.
So, Mike, you've been the reporter out on the street. You've been at the county fair, the Wetipquin Community Center public meeting, and you've also been out to the new medical center. So, busy week for you, huh?
Yes, it has been, but it keeps me out of the house.
So we're going to talk about Wetipquin and the medical center out on Church Street in a little bit, but we'll talk about the county fair. Great weekend for it, right?
It was fantastic. You know, to me, this is one of the best things that Wicomico County has to offer. I'll tell you a story. I got a friend who lives up in Baltimore who came down for it last year, and she said that this county fair she thought was better than the Maryland State Fair.
Yeah.
Is it as big? No. But
that's probably partially why it was better.
Well, yeah. There's some great food.
Hey, shout out to Parsonsburg Fire Department for the barbecue chicken, right?
And that's what I had for dinner.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely awesome.
Can you imagine growing up on that like I have?
Oh, man, I could eat that every day. Yeah. And, even some of the food, my wife, she doesn't like to eat a whole lot of different things. She could live on pizza. She ordered a pizza from the one pizza guy who was out there operating out of the truck. It was top shelf.
Wow.
But there was
car show?
I'm sorry?
Car show?
Yeah, they had the car show, and you had the Maryland High School Rodeo Association, which I'm a big supporter of. Coming from Texas, I'm a big rodeo fan, and you wouldn't expect that to exist here. And these young people, they come from New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland, and there's some talent there. In fact, some of them have moved on to professional rodeo. And it gives the little kids an opportunity to get a start in rodeo with events like tether goat roping, simple stuff. The barrel racing was great. There was bull riding, just all of the usual events were there. And
plus the 4-H fair was there too.
Yes, there's
really
a
nice job.
petting zoo, or I guess you call it the petting zoo. Lots of good animal exhibits. We apparently raise a lot of goats in Wicomico County, and I'm not referring to the three of us here, but
we would
there's
be
a
below
lot.
average goats.
Below average billies.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to do, a lot to see. You always wind up running into people that It was just a terrific event, and I can't wait till next year to do it all again.
So we are looking forward in September that there's going to be a meeting down at Westside Community Center to talk about Wetipquin. But in the meantime, Delegate Chris Adams and Tom Hutchinson came out, and you covered that. So, and Jim Atkins was down there as well. What I'd like to do is take a break, bring Jim Atkins on. Let's talk about Wetipquin. And then, Joe, if you would come back, we do have the new medical center on East Church Street that opened. Mike and I were out there covering that, and get some of that information out as well.
Definitely.
So, you stick around?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So when we come back, we're going to bring in Mr. Jim Atkins, and we're going to talk about Wetipquin Creek. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. So to talk about the meeting down at the Westside Community Center for Wetipquin Creek State Park that was hosted by Delegate Chris Adams and Delegate Tom Hutchinson, brought in Mr. Jim Atkins, along with Mr. Mike Goldberg. Thanks for sticking around.
Hey, sure.
So you both attended the meeting down at the Westside Community Center. Mike, thank you for covering it and getting us footage. I want to find out, what information were you able to find out at the meeting, and what information were you not able to find out?
There's a lot more information that we didn't find out than information that we found out. Frankly, they didn't have an abundance of information.
Okay.
Most of the meeting was just going over the few facts that they had and giving stakeholders in the neighborhood an opportunity to express their concerns. And the underlying concerns were, pretty across the board, it seemed. Folks were concerned about what kind of traffic volumes this would attract. What happens if there's deer hunting and a deer is shot, wounded, goes onto an adjacent landowner's land. There was concerns about who bears the cost of any off-site improvements that may be necessary, such as road improvements or stormwater conveyance. There's just a lot of unknowns.
And they didn't have any answers for that. But is it fair to say that the ball is in Department of Natural Resources court right now? It's up to them to close the sale?
Yeah, I think that one of the major reasons for the meeting the other night, I think the community knew, and Delegate Adams definitely knew that he wasn't going to have a whole lot of answers for these people, because he doesn't know a lot more than a lot of the people here know.
He didn't make the decision.
He didn't make the decision, wasn't involved in the decision. But I think one of the main reasons for that meeting was they have a meeting scheduled on September the 23rd.
At the Westside Community Center.
At the Westside Community Center.
6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock with the Secretary of DNR, Department of Natural Resources.
Secretary Kurtz.
Who is spearheading this event. And it was a gathering of questions that I don't want to say they want to prepare Secretary Kurtz with, but they want him to be able to know what the community is going to ask so he can answer them and not say, I'll have to get back to you.
Because you don't know when that will be.
Exactly. They're prepping him.
But this sale actually was supposed to close in early July. Still
has not closed.
But it very well may close before he gets here in September. This is not a decision whether or not we're going to buy it. It's just DNR's decision to buy it or not.
Yes, and what use is going to be made of it.
It's been approved by the Board of Public Works, the State Board of Public Works, and I think the issue that most people are having with this is that these meetings should have been held, before they entered into negotiations to acquire the property. There's an information void, vacuum out there, and that's what has people unsettled.
Can we talk about the department or the Board of Public Works for a second? Because that's an enigma for a lot of folks. At the state level, that is three folks. That's the governor, the treasurer, and the comptroller. So when the General Assembly allocates money, just like our county council allocates money, they're basically the approval process. Two of the three of them have to agree. There's been times that a governor has signed for money to be spent and it goes to Public Works, and the comptroller and the treasurer just basically say there's not enough money or it's not a legal use of that money. But in this case, and the county executive spoke that she was on the Zoom call back in February when they voted. They all three voted to proceed with this sale, right? That gets everybody caught up. Who it was and what their role is.
Yes.
Our county executive said that she didn't have any say in that.
And I don't buy that for a minute. She didn't have any direct say, perhaps, but she certainly had influence, and it's pretty well known that she took members of the Department of Natural Resources on a tour of the county.
She said that.
She said that.
Now, what questions did she have at the meeting last week?
Absolutely none. There's a good reason for that. She wasn't there.
Okay.
And neither was the director of administration. Nobody from the administration showed up. We had two state delegates, delegates Hutchinson and Delegate Adams there, but there was a third delegate who was also a no-show, Delegate Barry Beecham, who was appointed to fill a vacancy by the county executive. So the executive's office has gone silent, and those associated with her. I've got a problem with that. There were questions that they should have been there to answer, because they actually do have some of the answers, but they weren't there. Now, will they be there at the September 23rd meeting? We'll wait and see. I would hope that they would be there, but there's gonna be some tough questions asked at that.
There was one anecdote that the county executive said publicly last week on another show that she actually had to explain to Delegate Beecham where the park was. That to me is pretty concerning, because I don't live near Wetipquin. I live on the other side of the county. But when this came up, I drove my car over to see where this would be. I don't represent any voters in the county, but I still wanted to know where it was. It's not going to be close to my backyard at all.
Well, I think this kind of indicates how removed some of our elected officials are from what's going on in this county. It doesn't affect me, so I don't care. I don't like that kind of attitude.
Well, this is I have a very hard time with this situation with this state park. And I can argue on either side of the argument. Whatever side you want, I can argue that side. The first side is, it's a private transaction between a landowner and the state of Maryland. It wouldn't matter if it was a private land sale between me and you. It's a private land sale. The man owns it. If he wants to sell it, he can do whatever he wants to do with it. Now, the citizens down there, the other side of the argument is that they were kept in the dark about all this until it was all but a done deal. They found out on Facebook, just like everybody else did. They are concerned about hunting. If somebody shoots a deer and the deer runs onto their property, what you can do. Well, everybody else in the county has that same problem. It's not just with Wetipquin State Park. It could happen on your property, my property, They're concerned about
The parking lot, too.
the parking lot.
I don't even know where to start. Okay.
Go ahead.
So parking lots not being built in critical areas, they're doing it at code. That's critical areas. And they're putting a parking lot there, right? Yep. Okay, so that's out of the question. They can do whatever they want.
Their concern with the parking lot doesn't just lie with the parking lot. It lies with the state of Maryland and how the state of Maryland does not have to follow the same rules that the citizens of Maryland have. Because one of the points that was brought up down there the other night was that there couldn't be any parking lots built in the Wetipquin Park if it is created because it is wetlands.
It's in the Chesapeake Bay critical area.
Critical area wetlands. And the response to that immediately from one of the citizens was well, so is Cove Road, and you're putting a parking lot in there.
Yeah.
So you do what you want.
It's not a hard surface parking lot, but it's still...
Yeah, it's a porous parking lot, but it's the same thing. So the lack of information supplied to them, the lack of any type of plans by either, not necessarily the county, but by the state to tell them what's going to happen down there and how it's going to be, has these people rightly concerned about their property and how it's going to affect it.
When you do a development such as a park, typically there would be a conceptual plan. They'd have some idea of what type of amenities, what type of features this park is going to have. Right now, to the best of our knowledge, there's nothing. The current owner, he certainly has every right to sell that property to whoever he wants. No argument about that. But I hate to make an analogy to safari at the quarry, but it's kind of the same thing going on here. The residents out there found out about this park from Facebook, not from their county executive.
Well, they did find out about it from the county executive on Facebook, though. Just to be fair.
But it was after.
Well, she was touting it. That was back in February.
Right. So, they were already in the middle of doing the deal, and, then people found out about it. And, this is what upsets me.
I would agree with both of you that he should be able to sell it to whoever he wants. But say he was selling it to me, and my goal was to put an amusement park there. Well, the folks in that area would most certainly have a say in whether or not I could have put an amusement park there. Now, I'm not saying a state park's an amusement park.
Well, no.
But who gets to make that determination?
Well, no, and another issue that was brought up down there was apparently all of this land that is being sold to the state, the way I understood it, is in a conservation district. He has placed this property in a conservation, so it can't be developed. nothing can happen to it.
But
I
they
think
could
that's
bus people in to
Yes,
see it.
yes.
And I think that's one of the upsides. If it were to be used for some other purpose other than a park, it's always possible that it could be rezoned somehow and used for high density development. A park is probably a better choice, but here's where the problem is: the people aren't being given a say in this. This is being thrust upon them by people at the state level, perhaps by people at the county level, and they are not getting a say until after it's a done deal. And this creates a lot of resentment and distrust for both our county and
especially
state governments.
we covered last week with the biodiesel refinery. These are the same folks who are thrusting a biodiesel refinery on us with our own tax dollars. It creates a layer of distrust, and then, like we were saying before, they find out on Facebook. They find out when the county executive thought this was a good thing and she was touting it, then retracted that when she found out a bunch of people were upset. But the horse is out of the barn to some degree. Now, this hasn't been a closed deal, but it doesn't rest on the citizens weighing in. It's not up to us.
No. And one of the other concerns they had down there is that this property, not equally, but it is divided by Wetipquin Creek. So you can enter the property to see the historic buildings that have been remodeled and redone, which is great. But if the entire property is opened up to a state park, there has to be another entrance somewhere to get to the property on the other side of the creek.
Unless it's just buffer. I mean, like Shad Landing Park, there's more to that park that kind of goes down along the Pocomoke River.
Right.
But this is where Mike comes in. How about some conceptual maps? Like, what's your thinking?
That's it exactly. They don't have a clue.
We shouldn't be sitting here guessing. They should be able to give us an idea.
They don't have a clue what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and they just it's lack of information that has really caused a lot of this.
I think one thing that's interesting, Mike, last year you and I went out to the county park with Wetipquin, where they have the boat ramp. And that park right now is currently getting a facelift by the county through Project Open Space. They're getting a fishing pier.
It's built.
Yeah,
it's done.
And a soft launch for kayaks.
Yep.
I bet you a lot of the folks in the county don't even know it exists.
Right.
And if you ever really want to go like on a daycation and just feel like you've left your home and you haven't left 20 minutes, go down there. It's really cool. And that's saying you didn't even go at sunset or sunrise.
Right.
Saying you're not even a birder. I'm not a birder, but you could go down there and fish or crab or just don't swim because it's swift, as you've said.
I found out the hard way about that one time some years ago.
So let's talk about this meeting they're going to have in September one more time. September 23rd, 6 o'clock. Now they're saying it's going to be in the West Side Community Center
Community
in
Center,
the gym.
in the gym,
Give
in the
people
large
some
room.
space.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And then this is going to be run by the Secretary of DNR.
Yes.
And maybe people have some more information. But in the meantime, are we asking our local county officials, our elected officials, our executive and our council to get more information for us? Is that fair?
Well, of course it's fair, but for some reason they're evading this. And I think the administration probably recognizes that it should have been a bit more forthcoming with information about this park earlier on. They assumed that everybody would embrace this park. Well, that does not seem to be the case. It doesn't mean that people won't embrace it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they have to know how it's going to impact them. The stakeholders who live in the area need to understand the impact. Will it have an impact on their property values? And if so, will it be a positive or a negative impact? Low impact parks, from my experience and as a commercial real estate lender and due diligence officer, tend to tend to enhance real estate values, but when there are disruptive events, then that can negatively impact. And right now, people don't know what's going on, so they're asking legitimate questions. And for the life of me, I do not know why the administration was not present at this meeting. They should have been.
And you listen to some of the people at the meeting. I mean, they've quit asking the county for information. They're asking the state for information, and they're not getting any answers from the state either. Nobody's telling anybody anything.
What's the big secret?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for going down there, listening. Thank you, Mike, for covering it.
Of course.
So stay with us. When we come back, we're going to cover the medical center opening up on Church Street. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Mr. Dr. Joe Venosa, thanks for coming back.
Sure.
Mr. Mike Goldberg, thanks for sticking around.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of information about Wetipquin Park, or Wetipquin Creek State Park potential, but also a lot more questions. And we're going to follow up with another episode with that after the meeting at the end of September. Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, there is a new medical center that opened up on Church Street. Joe, I know you've been at a lot of the county council meetings when they've been discussing the funding and the reasoning for this. I want to talk about that. Like,
sure.
Why are we getting this medical center?
So this medical center is in a part of the city, or you could say the county, that has historically been pretty neglected as far as healthcare access. It's sort of on the east side of the city of Salisbury. And the thinking is that you have an underserved community that now has access to a medical clinic that can really address a lot of long-term issues and provide the kind of preventative care and maintenance of care that a lot of those communities need historically. And this is actually not even a new initiative. This goes back, I believe, more than 100 years to when it was first envisioned.
You know, I'm sometimes critical of Greater Salisbury Committee, but this is a Salisbury project that was very much spearheaded by them and the board at PRMC. I think they do deserve a lot of credit here, at least in my opinion.
I agree.
For keeping this in front of everyone and getting the partners together. These are the types of projects that I would like to see them focus on rather than being out in the county deciding how rural sewer and water is going to work.
And the benefits of this project go beyond just healthcare. It's really become a nucleus for some redevelopment in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. From what I understand, that particular building that used to be there, the Esther Hotel, was a hotbed for drug use. Mm-hmm. It's gone now. They are
prostitution too.
And you're already seeing some home improvement taking place right across the street. People are fixing up the homes. Mm-hmm. It seems that the streets are safer. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that once you develop that centroid, that nucleus, mm-hmm. that the benefits will start to expand outward from there. And I think they will.
Well, and it also is connected to economic growth in the sense of bringing more professionals here, people in the medical professions, right, that are needed to help run those facilities. So, I guess the argument too is that long term it's going to help with our tax base. It's going to help with sort of just the general maybe upward swing of what we're trying to do economically in the county.
There were so many white coats there that day that made my blood pressure go up. But there's a whole bunch of young doctors who are doing their residency at this facility.
Right, exactly.
I'm pretty sure I saw Doogie Howser there. They all seem very young to me. But
some of y'all may not get that joke, but I did.
But it is going to help bring some new young professionals, medical professionals into the area. Mm. Hopefully they'll stay here after they've completed their residency and start private practices or go on staff at Tidal Health.
When you and I have been at the county council meetings when they've discussed the funding model for this and the reasons, part of the goal here is to keep folks out of the emergency department.
That's always a way of cutting costs is and this is going to be something we're going to have to deal with down the road with Medicaid cuts as they come, but when you take a person's ability to just get regular checkups or maintenance of care and then you go to the ER, not only is the condition typically worse and more severe, the costs are higher because you're in the ER.
Yeah. And
we have a weird system in the country where in the 80s we passed a law that said that basically you have to be cared for if you go to the ER, which is a good thing. The problem is it's basically an unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which only then rises the
passed-
cost for
well,
everybody who does pay.
And then it gets passed along because the whole point of, at least in terms of insurance, is that it's about spreading risk.
Is
So-
there
so-
any risk here that maybe the hospital might be taken out of service for some people, that they'll be forced to go funnel over here?
That was, I think, one of the, and I think it's a legitimate concern that I think some people maybe have viewed it as, you're actually kind of sort of resegregating some of your healthcare population by keeping people in that part of the community there. But then again, if you can get just as good of a service in that location, because again, if you have an ER that's filled up or you don't have enough people on staff at the hospital, clinics are a great default for that. I mean, clinics are how, in most of the world, really, rural healthcare is accessed.
Mike brought it up, but it definitely has seemed to put a new shine on that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I guess part of that mission would be to keep that shine going rather than let it get dinged up and not look proper.
Correct. And there is the new development, or excuse me, the redevelopment of the old train station that is located not too far away.
Within walking distance.
Within walking distance. So I think there is an attempt to sort of push the east side into more renovation. And look, as you said, Mike, whenever you have a facility like that is bringing in community members, medical professionals, raising the general level of care and quality of life, the other adjacent properties are usually going to be impacted in a positive way. I mean, I think we'd all agree you'd much rather have a functioning medical facility that affects hundreds of people than an abandoned hotel that is maybe affecting an off-market trade.
One question some folks had asked me when I was out there, and I happened to be at the county council meetings when they discussed this, is why couldn't they save the old Nestor Hotel? I can tell you from at least in the work sessions what was brought up, they tried. Like there was a push to actually renovate that building into this medical center, but the structural integrity and that sort of thing was just
beyond.
It was beyond. I will say I think it does pay homage to what the Nestor Hotel looked like.
It actually
reminds you.
Yeah, it does have some retro look to it in certain aspects of
Little
the
turret and
roofing,
everything.
turret. Yeah.
But this building it's a beautiful building. It's a modern building. It's beautifully landscaped, and I think it's going to serve the community and beyond, very well. I guess one thing I also noticed, unfortunately, is that once again I can't think of anybody from the administration who was there for this ribbon cutting. Was there?
Well, that's not at the county level. See, what's interesting is we had the governor of Maryland show up.
Secretary of Housing.
Secretary of
Former
Housing was
mayor.
there. I've heard of him. Yeah. We've had members of the county council, right? Mr. Merritt, Mr. Cannon was there. We've had several representatives from the mayor's office as well as
Delegate
city
Beecham
council.
knew where that one was.
Delegate
Not-
Beecham, thank you for being there. That was good. Good job. But you're right. Executive Giordano was MIA on this.
She did have a conflict that day because she was part of a panel at that time at the Mako convention in Ocean City.
Okay.
And I might add that we tried to get permission to cover that portion of the Mako convention, and we were told that all members of the panel had to render their consent in order for us to be able to record. Within an hour after the request was made, it was denied.
I'm not a rich man, but I would bet quite a bit of money it wasn't Anthony Brown.
Probably wasn't.
Well, and so that panel at the Mako conference down in Ocean City, and the county executive posted a lot of photos with them down there. Part of the conference, having some fun as well. It was talking about national policy and how it affects governments. And I think we've shown on this show a lot of times the best use of local government is to stay local, focus on your local issues. Sometimes you got to step out and do those other things. But when we see our county executive not down at the Wetipquin meeting, not at some of these other ribbon cuttings, but also not at the county council meetings to talk to groups like the NAACP, like we covered earlier this week.
Yeah.
At some point, how will you know what the people need if you don't ever meet the people where they're at?
Exactly. And it's a consistent pattern of behavior, and I hate repeating that term, but
It's repeating.
The more it goes on, the more the behavior actually does repeat itself.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back next week with another new episode.
There's definitely room in the elevator, ma'am. I counted.